Welcome back to another ADSN special, 30 minutes. Today with Dr. Neil Paulvin, coming in today as a 20-year certified, a board certified physician, expert in integrative medicine. And today Dr. Paulvin, want you to help us understand, our listeners understand peptides, kind of what's happening in the health and wellness space, and just kind of educate us as kind of early folks that are interested in this but don't know much. And we're hearing so much about it, and thought we'd go straight to somebody who's an expert in the space and can help kind of demystify some of this.
Yeah, sure. Glad to help. Do you want me to do a brief intro, kind of what the 101 basics are? I can do that now. So I'll put the caveats. I don't have to say it throughout the episode. Is peptides have great potential. They have great power. They're kind of you have to use it for good, not evil. And I'll say two things. One, make sure you're getting, if you are using them, try to follow somebody who knows what they're doing, optimally a physician. I know that's not happening on social media. And two, more is not always better with these things, that it's sometimes you're better off, most times you're better off doing one, two, maybe three. These four, these 6, 7, 10 stacks are utterly ridiculous, in my opinion. So I just throw that out there. And then I said it for the episode. So yeah, peptides have been around actually for a while. They were around. They really started getting big in like 17 or 18, like almost 8, 9 years ago at this point. But now they've just hit such a fever pitch. I've never seen anything like the obsession with them at this point, which is good and bad. But so peptides are small groups of amino acids. They target either a body, an organ, or an enzyme, or a cell function, and they are there to optimally optimize the functioning of that organ or the body, or they can also do things to help the body function better. They can work to decrease inflammation, bring cells in for healing. That's why people use things like the quote unquote Wolverine stack. They can do the same type of process for building muscle. So they are there's about, I don't even know now, about 30 to 40 different peptides out there at this point. There are two groups. There's the ones that are peptides, and now we have kind of the old and new kids. They were founded actually in Russia in the 70s and 80s, mainly by a man named Dr. Kavasin. Part of this became, even they were initially treating the Russian soldiers, then some things when Chernobyl happened, and then it's supposed even with involving Putin, and then they become something called bioregulators, which work more on the cellular level, and they're very, very organ specific. There's one for the stomach, there's one for the liver, there's one for the ovaries, there's one for the testicle. We're hearing more about those with things like something called epidolon and pineolon, which are a lot of people in the VC space and the entrepreneur space are using for improving brain functioning and sleep and jet lag. So those are there's kind of like a rectangle is a square, but a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle is not a square type of situation where they're in the same family, but they're not exactly the same. Last thing I'll say is there are what I tell everybody, there's kind of 6 buckets of peptides at this point. There's the anti-inflammatory, muscle building, kind of like the gym head peptide group. You have the gut healing group. You have the brain, either for optimization or healing. You have the vanity stack, which is weight loss, hair, skin. Then you have the anti-aging stack for people who are trying to live to 150. And then you kind of have like the miscellaneous bucket of things that don't really have a specific, and there's one for neuropathy, one for affecting like immune system specifically. So there's a couple things that just don't fit into one of those categories. They could be injections, which is still the most prevalent. You can get them in pill form, nose spray, cream. Those are the most common formulations. And in most cases, like I said, most people, the strongest one is usually going to be and I think I'm not sure it's a nasal spray, but I mean, in terms of most cases, the injections are going to be the strongest. Pills are going to probably be second, unless we're talking about brain function or mood, where a lot of times the nasal spray would be most effective. So that's kind of the 3-minute broad overview. And then you also want to make sure you're getting it from what is called a compounding pharmacy, where it's regulated by somebody, usually by the state or by each state's pharmacy association, as opposed to if it's either research use or what's called quote unquote physician use. Those are not regulated by anybody, and you may just get what's called a COA and certificate of analysis, which somebody just got arrested last week and got sent to jail for I think 6 years because they falsified the COAs. So people were just saying, "Look, it happens a lot on Twitter. Look at my COA, my new cool company," and then we find out that COA is bull, and you're like, "Oh, what I just put into my body." So yeah, it's great to get it for half the price, but again, it's a buyer beware situation. So
And
that's kind of
you've
what's
been
out there
doing
right now. It is the wild, wild west.
And you've been doing this now you've been in practice for over 20 years. It feels like the peptide conversation has kind of hit a fever max over the last year and a half, 2 years. Has this always been part of your practice and something that you've talked about? Or have you started to get more people coming to you now and raising their hand saying, "Doctor, I don't know what it is, but I want the Wolverine stack"?
The answer is yes to all of it. In the sense, yeah, I was an early adopter, like I said, probably in 17 or 18. Even probably even to like 2016. So we were using when nobody really knew what they were. They thought we were just making stuff up at that point with some weird abbreviations. Um, then obviously, unfortunately, things kind of there's some legal stuff and the pandemic hit and it kind of became harder. And then literally in the last 18 months and literally the last 6 months, things have just I've never as I said I've never seen anything that's been this popular. Also, I've never seen things that are unfortunately they're overhyped. I mean, they're not the cure for everything. They do have a huge range of potential to them, but also people just asking for things they have no idea why they're asking for it. Like if you and they just want it because it's almost because they saw it on social media. So it's a very weird situation I've never been exposed to before, where people say, "I want this and this and this," and I'm like, "So why you want to take it?" "Oh, I don't know. I saw it online, or I read about it, or my friend's taking it." Which again, it's not like I'm going to take my friend's blood pressure medicine or their diabetic medication. So it's a very weird situation. But again, like I said, if you use it the right way, it's very powerful. But
and are you? It sounds like you are of the position that these do work. There are for someone who's I'm probably pretty skeptical just on for the more because it seems so unregulated. But based on what you've seen. And, with your patients, I guess, if done the right way, these things actually can provide value.
That's a very tough question now to answer because the similarities in many of them in the right situation may provide benefit. What we're running into is, again, people overpromising things where it becomes it's the money situation we're running into is the process is very expensive. What I mean by that is a lot of the peptides that people are proclaiming, even something like a BBC 157, which is probably the most popular peptide out there you see everywhere, has very limited studies in humans. So a lot of people are like, well, if it's not been tested in humans and I don't know if it's safe in humans, I don't want to take it. We do know the problem is that since it's not patentable, nobody can make money on it. Nobody's going to spend the $10 million to do the studies. So it's a kind of a catch 22 in the sense that you're kind of like, okay, we have this med that have animal studies that it works. Human studies showed it was very safe. And that's 20 million people have done their own N of 1 testing and put it online into databases. They've had benefits and they had very minimal side effects. So I think we're starting to see a pivot with the advent of AI being better and better in terms of the health space that we may see where you don't need a $10 million study anymore. You may be able to get information more from the general public so that's saying that what it comes down to is they do work. We think they really do work at the right dosing. We just have some cases we just don't know because nobody can pay to do those tests definitively for certain ones. Many peptides are FDA approved or have a lot of human studies, and we've had to break that down for patients when we see them. There's about 10 to 12 that have great human studies or FDA approved, and those are A to B very easy to kind of explain to patients. Other patients with certain ones were there's not perfect data. There's a slight more of a risk to taking that, but you have to understand that going in. Some patients are like, no, I don't want to take the FDA approved ones. Other people are like, I'll order something from China. I don't care what it is. My friend said, take it. I'm going to take it. And that's kind of the society we're in right now. We're in a very DIY healthcare turnaround at this point. The health paradigm has totally changed. It's never going back to where it was, where you're just going to go see your doctor in the physical office and get treated. That's never going to happen again. So it's kind of like this. This is kind of the test case for that. But they do work. So short answer is they do work. the right peptide to the right doses in the right patient do work, but what's kind of out there is say this peptide work for everything is not true. So it's kind of a very
and
big dividing line.
kind of how you've described, patients coming in saying, I want, this, and this because I saw it online or because my friend said, and they're coming in with their preconceived notions and kind of requests. I mean, are you finding patients look at this as like a silver bullet, like an obese patient coming in thinking this is going to solve their problem, or a GLP-1 is going to solve all their problems? Or are you finding peptides in particular in any of the stack are more healthy individuals or people really attuned to their bodies coming in saying, now I want to elevate kind of what I've been spending the last 20 years doing? Like, what on the patient paradigm, what are you finding?
All the above to what you just said. It's all yes, all the way through. I mean, I wanted to just for clarification, GLP-1s are peptides, though they're amazingly FDA approved. They have great studies. When people talk about peptides, they always separate that one out because that one may be a wonder drug because we know it obviously helps with weight loss, but also helps brain health. It's going to help improve gut inflammation. It's going to help it's going to help potentially boost your energy. It does all these different things. So that is 100% what it says it is. But other patients are coming in and asking for 5 or 6 things, and I am not. There are people out there who will say, "Yeah, here's all 5 or 6." I will tell them the truth and kind of say, "Look, what are you taking? Why do you want to take this? Do you understand what the reality is?" And then some are like, "No, I still want to do all 6," and I kind of walk them through what the best approach with their goals are. Other people will walk out the door and say, "No, I'm going to go buy somebody else," and that I have no problem with that. I don't at this point. I'm very transparent with these because I think it's the only way to be about them at this point. Because it's the good and the bad is out there ad nauseum. It's just trying to sort through all the talking heads at this point who say they're experts. But that's what I find hilarious is that so and so is now a peptide expert who they're this or they. I mean, I'm in Manhattan and literally last week, 2 bodegas in a gym had signs saying "Buy them at our front counter, buy peptides," which I think is just shows kind of where we are at this point. Where again, I think, like I said, we've just totally jumped the shark, and again, we're not fixing it. It's just going to be now trying to regulate it and help people do the right thing and not get hurt. I think the basics are gone. We missed that step a long time ago.
And will, I guess, do the economics of this work for like big pharma to come in? Like, will they start to be the sort of broker of all this, or you think it maintains this sort of outside of that world dynamic?
I think it'll be 75% pharma. I think that's what we're already seeing now is that if you look, again, I'm not going to get too deep into it, is that for people who are following what happened the end of July where the peptide hearings happened, the first part of them at least, that the peptides that were up for debate avoided the ones that big pharma is doing their own research on to change the one amino acid in that product, makes it theirs where they can patent it and do all the studies on it. I think that's where we're heading. I think in 3 to 5 years, I would say 80% of the peptides that we're using now are going to be useless or not even people talking about them anymore because big pharma or biotech are going to combine and make a little bit better versions of them. And what we have now is just going to have not going to be as good. So I think that's what we're definitely heading to, that those 2 big heads have seen the money and the power in those things, and they're going to monetize it to death. But you also will have the black market forever at this point. Again, a lot of people are doing the DIY thing. I mean, I'm not going to mention certain social media personalities who, hey, I got my steroids from here and my this from here. And people will still do that. They understand the risk, or maybe they don't. So that DIY portion is going to be 25% of the market no matter what. And unfortunately, until something happens really severe to many people, people aren't going to stop that. They haven't learned yet. But I think the majority of the rest of the market will be big pharma and the biotech companies. For most of these things, because again, they can make a better mousetrap very easily. And again, like I said, I think 6 or 7 are already FDA approved if you want to count the GLP-1s in there. So I think the other, again, for inflammation and for brain health, we're going to have much better ones in the next couple years. We already know that.
Does it make you really bullish on like health going forward? Like, are we about to enter this like longevity cycle where like people are really healthier because of all this stuff, or is it, yeah?
It's 50, it's probably 75 yes, in the sense of I like the fact that we're flipping like I said before, flipping the paradigm, that people are kind of taking control of their own health, because the medical system in the US is kind of broken. We treat this illness, we don't try to prevent, and you can't do a traditional medical visit in like 10, 15 minutes. I don't know, depending on what type of assist, if you're going through regular insurance, you're going to get 15, 20 minutes, and that's what you get. So now you have either the concierge doctor or people just doing these DIY or online things. So it's great that people are trying to do things to prevent illness, make themselves perform and feel better. I just, like I said, the 25% is, we're not, the system isn't built for that. We don't have the regulation for that. And that's going to be, it's going to be a messy 10 to 20 year process for us to catch up, and then throw AI in there, which that's a whole other conversation of how well we're regulating AI at this point. And then it's going to be great for people to be healthy, definitely 10 to 20 years from now. I mean, people say that in the kind of the tagline again on social media, within the next 5 years, you will see that generation being born that may not have to deal with many of the illnesses that we have to deal with now. And we're getting very close to that kind of inflection point. So that overall, it's a good thing. It's just
outside of, I think, just the peptides themselves, do you have kind of a protocol with patients, maybe patients that are a little more open, right, that not DIY, that want to kind of listen to the professional and hear how you set it up, but I don't know, make sure you're getting X hours of sleep and resistance training or running, or kind of doing foundational blocks before peptides, and when you do peptides, make sure you're doing blood test. Like, do you have a protocol that an ideal patient you would recommend to?
That's the perfect world. That's where a lot of us docs who've been doing this for years are kind of trying to, turning the attack, not the best expression for it, but we're trying to bring things kind of back to the midline, at least in the sense of, again, these are not, like you said, these are not like the panacea for everything. So we're trying to still promote again, the 4 or 5 pillars: exercise, sleep maximization, which you can do through general things, plus now every wearable that's out there. You exercise, sleep, diet, stress reduction, balancing your circadian rhythm. If you don't do those things, a lot of the peptides are the way I explain it to patients, if you're $1 million in debt, this peptide is not going to take you out of debt. It may make you $900,000 in debt. So it's again, you have to, if you fix the things that are putting you in debt to begin with. And then now again, with the advent of all the biomarker testing, and now I have patients who I can link to my portal and say, okay, your Oura or your Whoop score is this, showing that you're getting not good sleep. Or I get your labs every 3 or 6 months and say, okay, we could trend it out now and say, look, this is between this and what we're seeing on your data and what you're telling me, we can pretty much highlight this. And then you may want to do this medication and take this peptide and do this supplement, and make sure you're going in the sauna 3 times a week. So we can pick, I always tell my patients, my cheesy analogy, you want to kind of pick a little from column A, column B, column C. It's not all column A, which is peptide, 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 peptide. Because again, it doesn't work that way. And no system will ever work that way. That's where people want to listen. Some people just are on the peptide high and that's all they want. They don't want to do the basic stuff. They just don't want to do it. They don't want to hear it. They just think they can sleep on their couch and take their growth hormone peptide and take their BBC and they'll feel great and they don't have to do anything else, which is the same thing with the GLP-1s, that people think they're just a Band-Aid for everything, and they'll find out very quickly it's not.
And then what is I've heard obviously GLP-1s, GLP-3s, Wolverine stack, like these are all, like, what are they actually? I guess for people who don't like when you say it's amino, like what physically, how are these things all made?
Okay, a lot of different. So, I mean, okay, let me go back. Okay, so GLP-1s are different combinations of enzymes or hormones that are in the body. So GLP-1s are started with something called Byetta a long time ago. Then they became Ozempic or semaglutide. which is just a GLP. Then we added something else called GIP to make Zepbound, and then Reta, which people now are black marketing as GLP-3. Otherwise, they'll get sued up all over the place. That's why they had to stop calling it Reta, which will also a glucagon, which will work on glucagon, which is kind of the holy grail for energy and weight loss and lowering cholesterol. So when Reta officially comes out next year, it'll be like the home run of all home run of peptides, it looks like at this point. If it's not like $10,000 a vial, it's a whole nother conversation.
That thing will like replace GLP-1s, basically. Is that like the thinking?
Some people, again, there's a lot of overhype of it. It will be for the person in the short. A lot of us are thinking in the short term. It'll be kind of like over 6 months or a year. It's great to reset a lot of pathways as long as you can deal with the side effects. The side effects are a lot stronger than they are in the other medications, but a lot of people are not going to tolerate it and pay for it for a long period of time. So some people may do Reta for 6 months, a year to kind of hit the reset button on their health, and then may either go like tirzepatide or semaglutide after that. It's kind of like, it's the super Ferrari with side effects. So it's a lot of people who are promoting it now, or when they get the real stuff, are just not going to be able to tolerate it forever. It's just, so that it has great potential. And then the Wolverine. So what happens is you're combining, like, a GLP-1 is a real thing from a pharmaceutical company. It's regulated, studied, done. That's one thing. GLP-3, Wolverine Stack, Glow, Clo are all made up marketing names that only like kind of non-regulated places are using because they can't use the real names, or they're trying to like make something up. So those are totally mass marketed things that most regular doctors don't use. That's kind of always, I tell people, if they're promoting something called GLP-3, or they're telling you to use Glow or Clo, they're kind of not, they're kind of misusing the peptides or giving you false information. So those are combos. Like Wolverine Stack used to be different. Now it's just BPC and TB4, which is for muscle building, inflammation, and sometimes people find their brain acuity is better. It used to have some growth hormone peptide in there as well, but that be for legal reasons they couldn't use it anymore. And then Glow and Clo became mostly anti-inflammatory stacks. Like the problem with them is that we don't ever recommend people using 4 peptides at one time. And also when you do a combo, which some people like, you can't use the dose. You can't change dosing. What I need is not what the dose that I need for my goal is not the dose that you need for your goal, and so on and so forth. So there's fixed doses in those combos of 4 different peptides. So what's happening is you're probably getting the right dose of one of those 4 peptides. The rest of them you're just wasting money on and just getting the potential side effects of. So a lot of that's just mass marketing garbage at this point. And again, a lot of us who've been doing this for 10 years hate those peptides in most cases. We love Reta when it comes out, but it's just become, hey, let's put a cool name to something and people will buy it. So it's a very dividing line at this point, where GLP-1 is a real thing from a pharmaceutical company. The rest of it's just the research peptide companies trying to come up with some cool buzzwords like they did for like all the nicotine products that people use too, and so on and so forth.
And then you mentioned it as you were describing it, but somebody getting off of Reta after a year and then going down to semaglutide or GLP-1, like, are these peptides? I'll include GLP-1s in there. I know kind of you separated them out, but just for this question, I'm going to include them. Are these kind of lifelong applications now? Like once I start taking it, or like how do you talk to your patients about the duration?
Totally fair question. I'm trying to think how to answer it without making it very complicated. So GLP-1s, because many people in the future may be on very long time. We will more and more introduce things what are called microdosing, which is technically doing a lower than the lowest real dose that's out there, that most traditional endocrinologists hate. But our goal with those will be to get someone in the lowest dose possible that helps their symptoms, which may be very low dose. So the GLP-1s, the answer would be yes. Peptides, now what we do is the real doctors will stagger them and cycle them, meaning you will become used to peptides. If you're on, let's say, BPC 157, you don't want to be on it in perpetuity, because no matter what, you're going to become used to it. You get what's called tachyphylaxis, meaning that your body gets used to it, and you're going to need higher and higher doses to get the same effects. So we want to cycle it on and off. Some people will do it 3 months on, 3 months off. Other people do it once a year in a stack, or just use it like a Motrin. Hey, my shoulder's really bothering me again after a year and a half from working out or whatever injury they have. They do it for 3 months. They do a high dose anti-inflammatory stack, and then they're done again for a while. It's not something you want to do. None of the other peptides do you want to do continuously, because there's too many side effects. We don't know the benefits, and at that point, almost doctors will say there's much more risk than benefit of doing them continuously in perpetuity. That we can pretty much say confidently at this point. It's something that you want to. What we tell patients is 2 terms. Stacking means that you combine certain peptides to achieve a certain goal in maybe a faster period of time. It's kind of like I'm old, so I'll say like it's kind of like the superfriends uniting and become more powerful together than they would be separately. And then we cycle them, meaning you may do things every 3-6 months, as opposed to doing them continuously, because we know that you will have side effects from it. So that's kind of where we're at. So those will not be things you're going to take for the rest of your life. The next stack that comes, the next group that comes out more from biotech and the pharmaceutical and the big pharma, those may be things that we're using much more in perpetuity. That's the next generation or 2 generations from now. Right now, we're at the baby version of those things where you want to be very careful with how you do them.
Got it.
This is step 1. Many other steps coming probably in the next 10 years. This is by far early stages.
Which is fascinating, just given, as we talked about, just the social media excitement around it, that it feels like, we are, we're in this in culture. But no, Dr. Paulvin, we appreciate you hopping on today and explaining this. I feel like we went from history to the future, right? Phase 2 and phase 3. And so for people listening that want to learn more or kind of want to understand more of kind of your position as a certified physician, where can they learn more about you or find you?
And the best 2 places is either my Substack, which is just under Dr. Paulvin, or on my Instagram, things I never thought I'd be saying 20 years ago in med school, Dr. Paulvin on Instagram. Those are the easiest ways to find me on YouTube as well.
Okay.
Amazing.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for coming on 30 minutes.
Oh, it was fun. Made me think. Love it.
All right. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks. Bye.